Hello there, I am Sideshow with more over.gg coverage of DreamHack Winter, and joining me for an interview now is Jason Kaplan, who is casting the event, and we've got a lovely behind the scenes look inside the casting area at the moment. This of course is the analyst desk, which is laid out so beautifully that they've been using so far. So how have you enjoyed DreamHack so far? You've casted a lot of other events before. What's this experience been like?
So this is technically my second DreamHack, but first one working for DreamHack, because I did LCS back in 2013 here. But it's awesome because I come from the US, so we don't really have very many LAN centers or LAN cafes. You can't go to a big event like this and sit down with all your friends and play games together. So it's really cool. Also, there's CS here, there's there's Dota, there's StarCraft. There's just so many games. It's really cool to see everyone come together.
Did you used to attend LANs like this? Before you got into casting and stuff, did you go to things like this?
Never been to a single LAN before my casting career, yeah. It wasn't a big thing, because I had a computer, and my friends didn't really get together to play together. They would just play online. It was never a big thing, because, I didn't really play that many games when there was a modem, a 56K modem, dial-up and everything like that. I usually played when I was DSL, so you didn't really have problems with internet. So I didn't really have the opportunity. I would have loved to. Actually, when we in the office, when we play together, it's the most epic thing ever. We're all playing one game together.
Yeah, the LAN experience is something special. So let's start, not right at the beginning, but let's start with a broad, open question just in general about casting. Why do you enjoy casting? What is it about it that appeals to you? Why have you not been there's so many other things that you could do. Why cast?
I appreciate that. So there's so many other things I could do. Thank you for that. That helps. For me, and my parents even told me about this, is that when I cast, my personality comes out a little bit more. I was always not really a nerd, but I was always a gamer, and I was always kind of to myself in high school and stuff like that. But once they saw me casting, they could see the passion. They could see how much I enjoyed it, how much I love doing this. So being able to express myself in that way, I guess, is really nice, and also be able to tell the story, of the players, where they come from, their background, any trauma they've had in their past with family or stuff like that, or the parents not being for them, and they don't game, this is stupid, this is not a career, go back to college, stuff like that, and then being able to tell what's happening actually in the game. I know it's something really nice about it. There's a nice little flow to it. You get a really good feeling when you have that perfect game that you casted, kind of thing, and the people you meet. It's amazing. Honestly, I can't think of a single friend I have that's really not in the esports scene anymore, because it's such a part of your life. That's a very kind of answer, but no, yeah, it's completely true. How did you get to esports? What keeps you around in esports? Everyone can ask themselves that and probably have a similar answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're talking about storylines there and stuff like that, but you're more in the analysis part of it within Overwatch. Is it something you like to tie into your analysis and how the teams are going up and down? Is that something that really appeals to you? Right,
yeah. So that's something when I did LCS I really tried to do well. For instance, I can always think of this one stat. I had my own database I made. I have one for Overwatch, and it involved who gets first blood and how quickly they got first blood, and then how often they win after getting first blood, and stuff like that, as well as inhibitors and turrets, stuff like that. And there was one game, it was Gambit versus NIP here at DreamHack back in 2013. And I said one stat, it was a crazy stat I found, that Gambit finishes the game, wins the game after 12 seconds of taking their first inhibitor. And matter of fact, I said that stat, a good portion of the way through before they were attacking the inhibitor, they finished in 12 seconds after taking the first inhibitor. Little stuff like that, to take these cool little stats and relay it back to a storyline for the team. For instance, one thing I've been wanting to do for Overwatch that we can't really do with the stats at the moment is say time me when he's above 70% accuracy, Envious win 90% of the time. Little stuff like that to talk about how important he is to the team, right? And how important other factors can really be. So it's something you try to tie into it. You kind of obviously have time before the match to discuss what's the thing we want to hammer home, what's the big story for both these teams. And you try to find stats to back that up. You try to find plays within the game to back that up and really kind of build a nice little storyline for people to watch.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but you said that you have this kind of thing for Overwatch. Is there anything that jumps out at you in terms of maybe the teams here, maybe the teams in other places that would be an example of this, just off the top of your head? I know I'm putting you on the spot for that one.
I can think of one perfectly. At Overwatch Atlantic Showdown. it was Complexity versus Cloud9, and I looked at the stats between them and Cloud9, Complexity and Cloud9, and Cloud9 was the team they beat the most out of the top teams in NA. And I pointed that stat out, like, there was like, they lose 80% of the time to Envious, or they lose like 70% of the time to Fnatic. They beat, actually I think Liquid was like the team they beat the most, but Cloud9 was like right behind that, and I pointed out on stream, and matter of fact, they won. And then I also pointed out another one of Complexity is 0-22 against Envious in maps, and then they got stomped. I mean, Complexity is a whole nother like can of worms, but just like little stuff like that. Obviously I'm limited. All I really have is like the matchups and maps and stuff like that, but little things like that, like they go a long way. If you hammer home like a perfect stat like that, you feel so good, and like people at home are just like, holy crap, kind of thing. Like even like the 0-22, like people were talking about on Reddit after, like they didn't realize, hell, I didn't even realize until I pulled it up that they actually could not, I've never beaten Envious. And then the moment they do, you know, that's when you look like a god. That's when you look like an amazing person because you called it out. Like they never beat them before, but they're finally doing it, and then instantly you're hooked to watch the game.
Yeah, and it instantly builds a storyline as well, right? It gives more credit to the single win if they've been preceded by 22 losses. Although Complexity probably wouldn't feel the same way.
No, I don't think they're too happy about that stat. I need to stop saying it because I think they get really pissed off about it, but you know, it's true. It's numbers, like you can't deny that.
So you're talking a little bit about your time in LCS as well, and a variety of other games. What attracted you to Overwatch specifically at the beginning, and what has kept you interested in it?
I think you're gonna like this answer, actually. I was always a big TF2 fan. I never played really competitively, but I love to watch it, and I love the whole idea of TF2. I was like a medic player. I tried to be a soldier player, and then I realized I was too bad to be a soldier player, so I can play a medic and just kind of like, we'll try to not die. And I was actually surprisingly really good at it. I wanted to start casting it. This is before I even like began at ESL or anything like that. But that whole aspect I love. Overwatch, the fact that I can, and the same in Heroes, like pick any hero and feel like really unique, really different. Like for instance, Heroes of Storm, I can play Malfurion and feel like I'm playing World of Warcraft. And it's kind of the same here, where I can play like Roadhog and I feel like this big badass, able to hook people in, or Lucio, just feel untouchable kind of thing. Yeah, like that, the people I've met so far, like the actual people I've been able to put a face to a name to, it kind of wants to keep you around. Like besides just the game itself, the people you've met are really, really fantastic. And the game in general, it's always fun to play. Even if I'm playing competitive, the last 2 days of the season, getting sexist, annoying, trolls, give me a week and I'll be good, and I still love the game. I need a week break after that, but...
Just 1 week and then you're straight back into it.
I don't know why I punished myself. Same thing happened season 1. I tried to like hammer home top 500, and I almost broke my computer because I was so pissed off. But then like a week later, I was like, oh yeah, Overwatch is a great game, love it. It keeps you coming back, right?
Yeah, it definitely does. There's a lot of great things about Overwatch. It blends a lot of things from different genres and styles as well. What do you like specifically about casting the game as well then? Blending the two previous questions together.
Okay.
So what, rather than just the style of the game and stuff like that, rather the specifics. If you're watching a game, and what moments spring out to you? What parts do you really get enthused about?
Well, why I like casting it is because it's so difficult. It's so hard to cast it, like, as color. Like, play, it's like your dream game because you're always casting the entire time. But, like, color, you have such limited time. Like, you have such a small time window, where in League of Legends, you have, over the course of a 40-minute game, you probably have, like, 25, 30 minutes to actually talk all you want, kind of thing. But this one, no, you have such a small amount of time, so finding, which is also the most difficult part, finding the good things to talk about in that limited time, and then saying it correctly and conveying your idea correctly is so hard and challenging. And even now, I don't think I'm anywhere near where I want to be, right? Like, I think towards the start, I could tell it was terrible. I've gotten better, but that challenge alone makes me want to keep casting it. But the stuff that you love to see is just those back and forth games. Like, stomps can be kind of fun in their own right, because you just see one team smashing the other. The really boring games, though, are like a team where you know who should win is just slowly grinding out a game, so they're not actually trying really hard or something like that. I think we saw that with like Misfits in their first game today. They, at the end of Eichenwalde, they were like taking their time and going in 5v6 for no reason. But just like the big plays, like I think Rogue versus Nutakai really stood out to me, because I know Tavik is like this amazing player, and he's been stuck playing Mei, and then finally is Tavik unleashed, and he just walked all over them. And seeing so much individual skill out of him was fantastic. But yeah, it's just seeing new strats as well, like seeing new little things. I think it was APAC where AF Blue did this like odd thing on Numbani where they rushed everyone with a Bastion through the low ground to actually get in behind the point and set up a Bastion there. Little stuff like that, because there's always like new things being done, and you just don't really see it that often.
Are you a big fan of like what people would call the cheese strategies? I know that people tend to like get really excited about them because they're so unusual and they get brought out a lot. And at the BlizzCon World Cup as well, the South Korean team were playing like Symmetra and Torbjorn and stuff like that. And there was another game recently as well where Rogue were playing against Flash Lux, and they had a very odd composition. And people are like, are they just trolling? Is it something interesting? Is it like a cool new composition? Does that kind of stuff appeal to you as well, or do you like to just take a bit more of a measured approach to it all?
I know the Flash Lux game, that actually was a legitimate strategy. I talked to ACAM about it, and he was saying, yeah, it actually is really good, and teams don't know how to counter it. I like cheese strats. Like, if we're talking StarCraft and you do like a proxy cannon rush with Protoss, then I don't like it, but you can't cheese like that in this game. I think you test a team's grit when you pull out a cheese strat, if they can adapt to it correctly. If they can spot it and then analyze it in that moment to figure out what to do, that I love. No cannon rushes though, but no, the cheese, like they're very unique. Like you can't really cheese, I think, in Overwatch right now to that extent. Like you can't do 5 Winstons and a Lucio because there's a hero limit now. I think it'd be a little bit different if you could do stuff like that. It would be a little bit annoying, but no, it's innovative. Like it's new, no one's doing it, and it gives them more of a chance to win. But typically, the better team still should win. And if they don't, then maybe they're not, the better team. Like you have to be able to adapt. That's one thing I've always hammered home about casting. The teams going to adapt the quickest are usually the best teams, because with patches coming out as often as they do, and how game changing they are, if you can't adapt, you're not going to be the best team.
Okay, that leads quite nicely into talking about the patch then. The recent patch that hit, and the way that it's changed the game.
You say it's a hit?
No, has hit. All right, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a hit. It's led to a lot of people playing tank. We've seen a lot of tank, a lot of D.Va, stuff like that. Soldier 76 is very prevalent as well. It seems like it's certainly been a shift in how things have played, and over in Korea as well, it's had a notable impact in which teams have gone forward, if you subscribe to that idea of the fact that it had an impact rather than it just being upsets. But what are your impressions of the patch? Do you think it's, I'll just leave it open. What are your impressions of the patch?
I hate D.Va so much. I hate D.Va with a passion because it's just so frustrating. She's unkillable in her defense matrix and whatever, but the biggest change I love is the ult percent increase and how long it takes to actually get it. Because I've always said that the game's way too fast and it doesn't put the correct impact on people, on individual skill. Like AKM getting a 6 snipe on Widow. Well, it doesn't matter because they have like 5 ults to hold on to and you don't have any ults to actually attack with. But now, like it's a big deal. Like these individual hooks, like Harblue and Himsy really standing out. It really starts to show the skill of the players. And that's something I want to see. I think like the Soldier change, like he's a little too strong, just for the fact he was never really good before, right? Like before this patch, he wasn't amazing, but he was still solid, and he was still didn't really have a hard counter. Well, he still doesn't have a hard counter, and he's even stronger now, and it's still really hard to kill him. So it's just kind of odd, but at the same time, if I had the choice between patches this often that would change the game this often versus patches every couple months that barely change anything, I would choose this any day. It keeps it fresh, it keeps it new. What else has changed? Mercy? Haven't really seen much of her. It's like, oh, you can heal yourself quicker. All right, sorry. Yeah, all right, well, okay. Usually whenever Mercy takes damage, she dies, so it's not really that big of a deal.
Sombra, I guess, has been the recent addition.
That's true. Yeah, actually, I had this like moment when I was casting of figuring out why people say Sombra is bad. It's because when Ana came out, like the newest hero, she had such a big impact on the meta, and everyone was playing Ana, and it was all focused around her. But Sombra, she's not going to be a hero that's like, the meta completely changes around her. She's just going to be a pick that can come in. It's not like a super strong hero that came out that needed to be nerfed. She's just kind of maybe underpowered, if anything, and will be tweaked a little bit later on. But complexity, today showed Sombra's pretty good if you use it correctly. Like the whole hacking and the harassment I saw Torque doing. She's interesting. I want to see more heroes. Hopefully they keep coming a little bit quicker. Like I would want to see like 30, 40 by the end of the year. Next year, sorry. But she I think people expected too much out of her. Expect her because of the whole ARG, and they expect her to be this hero that changes the meta completely. But no, that's not how it's going to work with every hero, right? Like I can think, I don't know how many people out there will understand this reference, but like I can think back to League of Legends where, so my friend and I, he would buy a hero, like the new hero that came out with IP, and I would buy the next one, so we could always have like the new hero. He got Vayne and I got Yorick. And when Vayne came out, she was the strongest hero in the game. It was ridiculous what she could do. And then Yorick came out, and he was the weakest piece of crap ever. Stormer's not that weak, but she's not as flashy as Ana's going to be. And people have to understand you're going to get heroes like that, but there is a niche for it.
So something that you said there, you kind of hope that there's going to be 30, 40 heroes by the end of next year. Do you feel like, obviously we don't know what Blizzard's plans are further down the road, but if you were running the game, or if you had input, we dread to think what would happen. But do you think that would be a good route for the game to take, to increase the amount of heroes so that it's quite a large amount, or would keeping it small keep it more balanced? Or do you think at some point, I know Monty and Thorin were discussing this recently, might a patch be a draft be relevant if we got to the point where there was that many heroes in the game? Or what are your thoughts about the addition of heroes and the changes it'll make long-term to Overwatch?
So that's actually a really interesting question. I know we've talked about, like at BlizzCon, about like the whole draft system, and I know Monty has an idea for like how we like drafts to go, where you can play like 8 or 9 heroes. Like you're limited to 8 or 9 heroes, but you can switch between them. Obviously, like it was something odd. It wasn't that bad of an idea in theory, but there needs to be more heroes in the game. Like it will get too stale. There's just not enough like diversity in strategies at the moment. When you see one meta being played and every team using the same comp, you know that other things aren't viable enough to like counter it. I don't know. Like it's a slippery slope, I guess. If you put 100 flipping heroes in the game, well, that's too much. And no one new to the game would want to learn all the heroes to play competitively, right? That's the big turnoff for like League of Legends or Dota. But you need a solid amount that you can have varying strategies, like varying actual strats. Like if I look at Counter-Strike and I see Dust 2 and I see 3 go towards long and 2 go towards short, I can call that strat out, right? I can say it, and for everyone out there watching, like, yeah, they're going to do the 3-2 A push kind of thing, and you can know what to expect. I would love to be able to do the same in Overwatch, but with everyone playing the exact same setups, it's like you can't really have anything unique to a team. I think, who was it? I think it was Rogue? Yeah, I mean, maybe Rogue with the whole strat they did against Flash Lux. Like, you need something unique to the team, and you just can't really do that. Like, I mean, Miro, I guess he's like the best case of it. His Winston's insane, right? Everyone talks about his Winston, so you know his team's going to play around his Winston. Shadowburn on FaZe, his Genji's amazing. His team's going to play around his Genji. I want to see more of that, but like based off a team's picks for heroes, not just one player.
What do you think would have to change in order for that to become viable? Do you think that, because I know a number of people have said that simply the nature of the game is such that when certain heroes are powerful, they're going to be like sieved out by the players, and eventually you're going to have a composition that overall is like a generalist composition that ends up working well in a lot of situations, and that will become what people call the meta, and then you'll have variations on that. Do you think Overwatch can realistically, through its game design, get to a point where there are vast variations of actual strategies that people pull out, dependent on the composition, and then run them?
It comes to a couple different things, I think. Every hero in the game kind of fills a unique niche, right? Reaper, he's like a tank buster. Like, he can kill Roadhog like almost instantly. So if you have like this comp that's like based around a Winston or something like that, like that's the norm, right? And Reaper is like the only hero that can really bust that down. Well, if Reaper can be controlled by like X hero, then he's not effective to counter that comp, right? But if you have like 2 tank busters, if like all of a sudden another hero comes in with shotguns or something like that, but it's still unique enough to not be just like Reaper, then you have a variant of strategy where you can run that against the general composition, but that alone might not be like the strongest comp. Like there might be a counter to that. Like in League, there was always like a counter to a counter to a counter to a counter to a counter, and you eventually would get around the circle and hit back to the home base of like what the initial pick was. It's just that I think A, people are too stubborn, and B, the game doesn't have enough heroes yet to make that happen. There's like, I don't know, it's kind of terrible to like want another hero for the same role, because you want each hero to be unique, but you kind of need it to like change strategies up, because you can't do multiple Reapers, but if you have 2 heroes who act like a Reaper, then the whole triple tank setup dies, right? So I don't know, maybe something like that, like something similar enough in terms of like what they can do, but a different enough kit to make them unique would definitely like stop a stale meta from happening, I think.
Okay. What do you think about the long-term evolution of how people actually play the game? In the sense, if we use something like League, which I'll freely admit I have very, very little knowledge of.
So do I now, so don't worry.
But from what I understand, back in like Season 1 and Season 2, people weren't really playing the roles in the same way that they do. Right. They weren't defined as correctly. Or, I say correctly, if you want to use that kind of terminology. But they didn't have the roles in the same way that they're used now, and how they've slowly sifted down the years to be more and more refined and polished. And I've seen the same in other games. If you look back like 5 years ago, I'll use the example of TF2 because I'm very familiar with that. It's played drastically differently. You look at them and you think, what are they doing? They're not obeying some core principles that we now understand to be like how you should play the game competitively. Do you think we will look back at kind of these kind of tournaments and think, look, why are they all clumped up in a bottle? Why are they using their ults like this? Do you think, first of all, do you think that will be the case? And secondly, can you make any kind of predictions as to what the future would be like to put us in a position to look back at it like that?
I completely agree with that, actually, because we've already seen like so many different changes within terms of like hero picks and like what works really well together. I think the problem initially comes from people being lazy and being stubborn at the same time. So like they see, like for instance, when I play competitive, I just say, okay, what's the meta right now? All right, I'll play that. I don't do anything unique. I don't try to make anything new. And I think a lot of teams kind of ride that same train. They're not willing to try something like that to make something new happen. Also, there's not necessarily a big enough reward for it. Maybe at the moment, maybe things will change in the future. But I definitely, like a year down the line, there's gonna be a lot of changes in terms of that, like the grouping up. A lot more people suiciding when the fight's lost, a lot more ult preservation, because I think a lot of teams either A, use them too carelessly or invest too much into a one fight that they should already know they have. But it takes time. Like for instance, TF2, you said 5 years. In League of Legends, Season 1, it was like 2-1-2, and the AD carry was like middle or something like that. You didn't have a jungle, but it took time for people to like evolve the gameplay and figure out like what's the best possible use of every lane, of every situation, of every hero to make it work. And I think Overwatch still isn't even close to near that. Even with all the patches coming through, it's really hard to push it to that next level.
An interesting idea that I heard, I believe it was Monty who said it, was like his long-term idea of how he thinks that Overwatch will be set up would be like NFL style strategies, where you have kind of a playbook of how to attack, you set your people up, you're like waiting for a countdown or something, in the same sense as like smokes in CS or something, and then you're engaging. I've seen like smidgens of it with some of the Korean teams in the ways that they'll set people up. I'm thinking of Numbani, where they'll send someone around a flank and someone through the front, and they'll clearly have some kind of countdown to initiate on the people who are holding top left. Do you feel like that's something we're going to see, or is there too much power in having multiple heroes together and more risk in having single people on a flank?
I think we've actually already seen it. AF Blue, I believe it was, unless it was the South Korean team for the Overwatch World Cup, they actually have set positions that they go to, like 100% set positions. Everyone knows where to be when they want to like push the payload and stuff like that. That's what I love to see, actually. Like I related it back to CS, talking about like the 3-2-A push. Like that's what I want to see, because as an analyst, you can predict that, like a team setting up for that, or a team really unique to how they attack differently than other teams, like NFL style, onto a certain point. It's bound to happen, and it comes down to the teams who are like defending that to read into it properly and know the weakness and like prepare for it. It's going to take time. It's going to take like demos or something like that. It's going to take the ability for a coach to see every single point of view into a fight, to actually break down how it worked and didn't work, and them to be willing to try and dry run things like in Counter-Strike. Who was it? I was doing a qualifier for ESL 1 Cologne back in 2015. Yeah. And it was a South Korean team for CS I was playing. They didn't have anyone to scrim. So all they did was dry run strat after strat after strat after strat. And their strats were amazing. Like they would take bomb sites. The problem was they didn't know what to do after that, because they never were put in that situation, or like put in the situation of having to adapt their strategy because someone died early on or someone didn't have enough money for a smoke or something. It's going to take time. It's going to take willingness, and I think South Korea is definitely going to be one of the first teams to do that, or the first regions.
How much do you think coaches play an impact in that, and also evolution of the game, evolution of teams, being able to keep them together and stuff? Do you subscribe to the idea that really coaches are a necessity even this early on in the game? Do you think teams, I've heard it said by other casters and analysts, that teams are really like, they're throwing at this point if they don't have a coach or are not actively developing a coach for the long term? Do you subscribe to that? I mean, you've talked about a Freak of Freaks Blue. They obviously have Taerong, who just seems to be the most wonderful guy in the world, by the way. But he's got a really good mind for it as well. You could tell in the interviews that he was having, he's very articulate. He's able to say exactly what he means, and has a mind for the game. How much do you think the coaches are going to have a role in this?
In terms of playing, like going over strategies with teams and stuff like that, I don't really see a huge avenue for that for a while, like for a long time, because the hardest part about being a coach is that the players have to respect you individually enough. Like you have to be good enough for them to respect you, to actually be willing to listen to your idea. And that's why it's really hard for coaches to really get anywhere, is that the team doesn't respect you, well, then they won't listen to you, and then why are you there, kind of thing. I think if anything, we're going to see coaches more as, how do I explain it, like a personal thing, like someone to help calm the rivalries or the anger that players have between each other, and be that kind of third person who isn't directly related to it, to kind of calm them down and tell them their thoughts and like who's right, who's wrong. Because so many teams are breaking up. Like we're seeing it now. There's going to be a lot more to come. Like you could be like the most successful team and win so many tournaments, and then just have like a rivalry get out of hand within the team and it breaks up. But you're like making a ridiculous amount of money and you're the best team out there. Like you won't see that in professional sports because they get paid a ton, right? And they have coaches for this kind of stuff. So if anything, it's going to be like a mother or father figure to really kind of help calm things down within the team and keep them gelling. Like there's nothing worse than going into a game and being pissed off. Like you're the damage dealer and you're being pissed off your other damage dealer because you can't trust them, or they didn't wash their dishes that day or something, and then have that affect the game. Like there needs to be someone out there psychologically helping them, I think.
Okay, talking just at the beginning part of your answer to that question, where you were saying the coaches needing to get the respect of the players and needing to be good enough to earn the respect of the players as well. I want to tie this back into your job as a coach and an analyst, in that when you're learning, I assume most of it, your direct knowledge of the game, is not coming from directly playing the game in the same way that a top player is getting knowledge of the game. And I assume the same thing would be good for a coach as well, because you don't want to only have to pick your coaches from the top teams, otherwise your pool is tiny, right? So what are some of the ways in which you and which other people aspiring to be coaches are able to gain knowledge and properly analyze a game? What kind of thought processes go through your head when you're reviewing a game? What do you like to pick out of it? And how would you use analogies or compare to other games to describe picking up knowledge in Overwatch from watching rather than playing?
So the biggest problem I have with being an analyst is that I don't really have much time to scrim. Like I've done maybe 2 scrims in my entire life for Overwatch. And that's how I find the best way to learn the game is, well, playing it, just so you can experience it. You can, like, it's easy for me to say that, like, Reaper counters Roadhog, but to actually experience why he counters it and see, like, the little intricacies that work between them helps you explain it better and see why it works in compositions and why it doesn't work. The fact that I don't get to scrim, I just don't have the time to, or have 5 people willing to, like, carry me through a scrim and take time out of their own day to help, it hurts a lot. Because you don't, like, competitive mode is so much different than actual scrim, because people are more organized and they attack differently, and you don't have the ability to learn that. So what I do, luckily enough I'm in the position to do that, is just literally talk to the pro players. Like I have a good enough relationship with majority of the people out there that I can just ask them a question. Like for instance, I talked to Zappis before I did DreamHack, and I was asking him, like, what do you think of the new meta? And I brought my own ideas and like questions into it, like Zenyatta, like tell me about Zenyatta, because I feel like right now he's really strong and you can see a lot more play, and he's like, yeah, he's definitely really good, we're definitely gonna see a lot more of him, and he explains why. So I use like my resources of being able to talk to the pros to help a lot, and being able to like look over VODs of games and just kind of, for myself, kind of similar to what Flame does, I guess, is predict how a fight's gonna go based off what I can see, and then watch it and see what happened, and then see actually what happened and maybe where I was right or wrong in my analysis. But I think at the moment, like, most of my analysis just comes from playing the game so much and just kind of understanding like how a situation will work. I know it's gonna take a while. Like again, like you need, like I need to be able to like see a game and watch from so many different angles, but you can't do that because I need to see like why it didn't work. And if the camera wasn't on at the time, it's like, well, something could have happened. Like someone could have just got one shot by like some freak accident, and you'll never know. And then you'll look at the analysis of it and be like, how do you analyze it? Or you'll analyze it completely wrong. And definitely stats. I think that's the way Monty and I like to go, is really incorporate the stats into your analysis, which you can do that hopefully when Blizzard releases like that information, and then you won't even really need to talk to the players except for talking about like patches and how they feel, and like similar, just like small little interviews you do with them about, hey, you know, what's your thoughts coming into this next tournament kind of thing. But that's really hard. I feel kind of bad. It's really hard for like the newer casters to do that, because like if you're Tavik, I mean, not saying he's a very nice guy. He'll talk to anyone, but like, how are you going to talk to him, right? You can tweet to him if he sees it. You can go to stream if he sees it. You can't add him in game because he's got a full friends list. Like, what are the opportunities you have to actually talk to a top player? It's really difficult.
Now, after you talking about your like mini interviews with players and saying how do you feel like coming into this event, just to tie off this interview, I'd like to talk about the event specifics and the teams that are in it and some of the storylines and things.
Okay.
So, as a broad overview, what were your thoughts coming into DreamHack Winter? What were you interested to see between the teams? Okay,
so complexity. What the hell have they been doing? In terms of like where they've been, right? Like they're unfortunately didn't get to go to Korea. They didn't get to participate in APAC. None of the players went to BlizzCon. Like we just have not seen them. We literally just have not seen them. So I want to see what they're up to because they're always like a favorite of my team. Harblue is hilarious. He's such a funny guy. Like you can't really annoy him ever, and you can't really piss him off. He's always so cheery. So want to see what they were up to. Fnatic with IDQD out when you just transition into like a double hit scan meta. How are they going to fare with Half Cool coming in? Then you have Misfits with Crew, like the guy who made the team, leaving, and then Cooler coming in with the pressure that's on his shoulders now to be a caller for his team when he wasn't really for Anox. And then you have NIP, who they're such a good team, right? But they've never won something like of notable value, and I want to see them finally be able to make their way through, like finally get that pressure off their shoulders, and then finally use like the high off of this to get even further.
Okay, if I had to press you for predictions, just as a closing
NIP.
thought.
It's not even gonna take me time. NIP, hands down. Like the meta's too good for him right now. There's no Reaper anymore. They run triple tank. I'm a little bit worried though if like they start to realize, we really need a diva. Like I don't know if Envious would let them be able to play like this if they didn't run a diva kind of thing. Or they need to be challenged by some like really good soldiers or something like that. But it's got to be NIP. Like if I were to predict someone who you wouldn't really expect it, maybe LDLC actually. I don't know about winning the whole tournament, but I feel like they have potential to pull up a couple of upsets. Like they play Misfits, and I think there's actually a chance they can beat them. I've been hearing a lot of good things about LDLC.
Okay, that's very interesting. All right, thank you. That was a long one. I let the time escape from me, but it's just so lovely to get a chance to catch up with you. Good luck for the rest of the event. I hope it goes swimmingly for you, and I'm looking forward to watching the games that you're going to be casting.
I'm looking forward to seeing you at MGA coming up in like a week or two time.